Welcome to Tyrompers No Limit Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thanks so much for tuning in to Tyrompers No Limit Podcast. We have an amazing guest today. You guys aren't going to believe what this man here, Ben Rudolph, has done and accomplished thus far. This man is the founder and CEO of an up-and-coming company. Is it Steelworks? Is that right?
That's correct.
That's right. Yeah, this guy's a 15-year senior leader of Microsoft, dad of 9. That's not a misprint, correct? 9 awesome kids.
Not a misprint.
That's awesome. Right. And then he's into jiu-jitsu. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Krav Maga instructor, weightlifter, part of the 100-100 club. This guy just seems to do it all. Can't wait for you guys to get to know this guy. Mr. Ben Rudolph, welcome to the pod, brother. How you doing today?
Thanks, man. I'm doing all right. It's good to be here.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you, man. Well, dude, let's start with 9 kids, man. Just walk us through your journey a little bit, I guess. Let us, where'd you grow up? Let us know your early days, college. Just kind of walk us through how you got to where you are, man.
Yeah, you bet. So I actually grew up in Amish country in Pennsylvania. So I grew up in a place called Wyomissing, Pennsylvania. Really, the only reason anybody would have heard of Wyomissing is it's home to the Vanity Fair company, which owns like Vanity Fair, like ladies' undergarments and Wrangler and Lee and all those companies are like based there. There's a lot of industry. But it's also home to Taylor Swift. So Taylor Swift and I went to the same elementary school. She bailed a lot earlier than I did. She's also significantly younger. But yeah, she's from Wyomissing. Say John Updike, if you know John Updike, the Pulitzer Prize winning author, he's from Wyomissing. And then John and Kate plus 8. Remember John and Kate plus 8? Yeah. So John and I went to high school together. His dad was my dentist, so they're from Wyomissing. I'm in like, I don't know, 4th or beyond place for like most famous guy from Wyomissing. It's a surprising number.
Yeah, this place produces champions. I think we need to see what's in the water, man.
Yeah, Chad Henne.
Quarterback.
Yeah, he's from Wyomissing. If you know Ross Tucker, runs the Ross Tucker football podcast, does a bunch of commentary. He and I went to high school together, and he's killing it. So yeah, there's a lot of surprisingly famous.
How big is this town, man?
It's like 10,000 people. It's not that big.
A lot of A-list celebrities coming out.
Exactly. He's got a high density of famous people coming out of Wyomissing over the years. Yeah, so I lived there. I grew up there. Went to Wyomissing High School. Went down to D.C. for college, Washington D.C. Went to George Washington, where I actually got an art history degree, played rugby for 4 years there.
Nice.
Stuck around there for, 11 years, then helped start a little software company called Parallels. If you know Parallels, some of your listeners probably do. It's a software that lets you run Windows apps on a Mac. So you can run Windows stuff and Mac stuff side by side. And we started that in 2005. And that brought me out to the Seattle area because we, thought we were going to poach a bunch of Microsoft talent, and then Microsoft poached me in 2008, and I stayed there for 15 years until January.
Wow, man. Funny how that works out, right? So were you married at this point, started having a family, or no?
No. So my wife, I was the first employee at Parallels. She was the 6th employee at Parallels.
Wow, okay.
So she ran West Coast sales for us, and I was living on the East Coast. I was still living in the DC area. She's local. She's from the Seattle area. And the company, when it started to grow, home base really became Seattle. So I was, my girlfriend was in Seattle and my company was in Seattle. There's a couple of us in the DC area. So, I packed all my crap into my car and we drove from my parents' place outside of Philly in Wyomissing out to Seattle. Been here ever since. So yeah, we met in 2006, got married in 2008.
Okay, nice, man. And then I probably didn't take long, judging if you're just doing math. You have 9 children.
Right. Yeah. So our oldest came pretty quick. Honestly, I'm an only child, right? So like I'm one of one. My wife's family is much bigger. She's one of 4. Her mom was one of 8. But I don't know if 9 kids is really on anybody's radar. Even if you're like, I want to have a big family, right? Like 9's like a lot, right? Like it's a lot of
baseball
kids.
Team, man.
Totally. We were in our head. We were like, we're gonna have 3 kids. So my oldest daughter was born, then my oldest son was born about 2 years later. And we're like, look at us, like right on plan. We got the girl, then we got the boy. We'll have 1 more kid, another 2 years later. And then my 4th she's a bit of a surprise. We found out that we were having our 4th when our 3rd was only 6 months old. So those 2 were like back to back.
Holy cow,
so
man.
They're only 15 months apart.
Yeah.
And then, we realized, that was a bit of a culture shift, right? Like, everybody makes the joke, you got to go from like a man-to-man coverage to like a zone defense. yeah, you have boys, right? I think you got some
You
stuff, right?
toddlers.
So it's like, yeah. So, it's like little boys are like, they're all rocket, no rudder, right? They're just insane all the time.
Best way to put
Um,
it, man. Yeah.
right. So I was like, it's really, you have to play kind of like you have to play like it's a hybrid defense. So you got to play like a tight man on your son and then like a soft zone on the two girls, right? Just like a
That's
three
right.
man. But when we had three, when our fourth came along, we just kind of realized we're like, one, we can do it.
Mm.
It's a blessing to have a full house, and they're going to come when they come. So that was just kind of our mantra. Like, listen, like, we're blessed enough to have the means, and our kids live in a nice neighborhood, and we have like every blessing that God could provide to allow us to, shepherd these little souls, through life. So we just kind of said, we'll see when they come. And now we have nine. And
That's
really, like what I tell everybody is like, more than anything else, it's just a logistics problem. Like logistics is the hard part when you have more than three or four kids.
mm.
Like the vehicles that you drive have to change. Like we have a 12 passenger van
That's
because
amazing, man.
how do you get people from one place to another if you have 11 people, right? Like, just we're going to Hawaii in a couple of days, and I'm flying like airlifting 11 people, and like all of our crap from Spokane to Hawaii is like non-trivial.
Yeah, that's
So
that's
once you figure out the logistics piece, you realize like kids, they don't need that much stuff, right? Like especially babies. You
yeah.
know, like if babies have like a warm house and somebody to hold them and they have a food supply, they're pretty much good. So like
Mm.
we kind of stopped buying like we invest in reasonable clothes, you know what I mean? Is like we had this purple North Face coat, and it's like a down North Face coat. It's reversible and stuff. And it's like we bought it for my oldest, and like it's gone through six girls, right? Because it's like, yeah, it was like $150 or something, but like it's better than buying six coats a season, right? It's like it's cheaper
Right.
in the long run. It's like you can buy cheap twice, you can buy good once. So we invest in that stuff, and then we hand it down.
Man, that's amazing. I love that. I want to get to a point here in a minute, but I got to back up and say, you said that boys are just all rocket fuel. And then
Yeah.
I post a lot my steps for the day. I had 27,000 yesterday. Most of that is just chasing my toddlers around, man. We run to the
Yeah.
park. They take scooters all around the neighborhood, right? And it's a good way to stay in shape. Just chase the kids around. But I
Yeah.
want to talk to you about, being a black belt. That takes a lot of discipline, right? You're a guy that clearly stays in great shape. Can you talk about how you do that? You are successful with your career. You're still a locked in dad and still doing a great job with that. Do your kids take an interest in what you do, and kind of holistically how that looks, man?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I would say like I was healthy for the most part. I mean, I definitely I went through some phase. When I was playing rugby in college, my playing weight was like, yeah, it was 240 or so. Like I was pretty big. And then after college, I kept eating like I was playing rugby, but I wasn't playing rugby. So I put on a bunch of weight. And about 2008, I kind of had this this moment where like I was a tennis player in high school, and I was playing tennis, and I came home and I had like chest pain, like legit chest pain. This was in like 2009, maybe. I guess my oldest was maybe a year and a half old. So I go to the ER because I'm like, gosh, this is weird. And they run all the blood work, and they're like, we detected some troponin in your heart. I think it's troponin, right? It's just like the enzyme that your heart emits when it's undergone some kind of trauma.
Mm.
So they like give me an angiogram and an echo and an EKG, and I'm like, listen, there's no sign of a heart attack, but something. My cardiologist was basically like, look, man, you got two options. Your cholesterol's high. I got bad genes for cholesterol and blood pressure. Blood pressure's high. You can either get your act together, or he's like, you put me on Lipitor, put me on something called diltiazem. And he's like, listen, you can either be on this stuff forever, or you can get your ass in gear.
Mm.
Like you're a young guy, you're an athlete. If you make lifestyle changes, you're going to be fine.
Yeah, you knew
So I made the
how to
lifestyle
do
changes.
it, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I went from, about 265 or so to about 200 pounds, and sometimes you go up and down, but like I've largely been able to kind of just keep it going because like, I don't want to die when I'm 50. I got a lot of people to take care of who are counting on me. And like, you want to set a good example for the kids with activity and with food and with all those things. So yeah, I mean, it's been something where like at this stage of my life, so I just turned 45 on Sunday.
Man, well, happy birthday. And cheers to you.
Oh, thank you.
You don't look near
Yeah, thank
45.
you.
Good for you, man.
I made it halfway to 90.
There we go.
So it's like, but it's like, now it's like, the exercise for me is like, it is a discipline thing, but it's also a mental health thing for part of my day. Like,
Yeah.
I'm on a 6-day-a-week cycle now. And I alternate. I do a day of weights, I do a day of cardio, day of weights, day of cardio. Basically, after my legs day, I take a day off. Like today, yesterday was my off day, right? Because I did legs on Sunday. Legs are feeling a little cranky and sore. I'm 45, so like I realized like I'm not what I was when I was 22. I got to recover, and then I'll get back on it tomorrow. But it's my time to, I'd say probably do a couple of things. Like, it's my time to decompress from the work day. It's a little time. It's the kind of rare moment that I get to myself. I don't lift with anybody. I don't work out with anybody. I don't listen to music. I'm like that weird guy. Like, I don't have headphones in. I'm just like that weird guy, like moving a lot of weight with no headphones in, because like it distracts me. And then it's also, to your point, like it's a discipline thing. Like, I don't like when people are like, just wait till you're 40, because you just wait till you're 40, the wheels are going to fall. And like, there's a little bit of that. Like, my knee's a little messed up, my back hurts because like I got a herniated disc from all the martial arts and stuff. But it's like, I'm stronger now than I've ever been. Like, I'm better on the treadmill now than I've ever been. Like, better than I was in my 30s, even when I'd like gone through my weight loss. Like, I'm way stronger now. So you can see the progress, right? I track everything in an app, and like, I can go back and I can look and be like, what was I benching 2 years ago? Like, what size dumbbells were we using? I was like, oh, I'm using, 2 years ago, I was benching with the 75-pound dumbbells. Now I'm using 110s. Like, that's good,
Awesome.
right? Like, that makes me happy. Like, when you get to the spot where you can grab the heaviest dumbbells in the gym and go do 8 reps of them, you feel good about yourself. So it's like,
right.
It's a discipline thing, and it's a mental health thing for sure.
Dude, I think you hit on a really important point there, especially for busy dads, the mental health aspect, man. I always say if I got no physical benefit from working out at this point, I'd go 6 days a week. I do 6 days a week as well. And to me, it is such I'm a better dad. I'm more patient. There's every attribute down the list I'm just better at when I get my workouts in. Our bodies are designed to move. And I think you see a lot of that just unhappiness and a lot of stuff that people go through just because they don't move, man. They sit at a desk all day, they sit at traffic, they sit and watch TV. That's not good for you, man, mentally or physically.
Absolutely. And it's the law of conservation of momentum, right? It's like bodies at rest want to stay at rest. And, we've all been in a spot. I was in great shape in my 30s after I lost the weight, and then I kind of lost it for a little bit. It happens to everybody. But you go back to the gym. Like, I know what I'm doing at the gym. You know what you're doing in the gym. If you don't know what you're doing at the gym, especially if you don't know what you're doing at the gym, and you've never had a coach, you've never had a personal trainer, you go to the gym and like, what happens? You're intimidated. Yeah. You see a bunch of people who are way more in shape. You think those people are judging you, and literally they don't care that you're there or not.
They're typically looking at themselves, man.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, those Instagram pictures aren't going to post themselves, right? It's like, but more than that, it's like you go, and even if you don't know what you're doing, you go do the chest press machine and you go do some flies, and you wake up in the morning and everything hurts. So what do people do? They don't go, right? Mm-hmm. They're done. They're just like, forget it. I don't know if this is what it's going to be like. And, it takes a certain degree of mental toughness and somebody coaching you about what the future looks like to realize, like, yeah, that first week sucks, but the second week's going to be awesome. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to start losing some weight, or like, shoveling snow. You're not going to feel like you're going to have a heart attack, right? He's like, so it snows a lot here in Spokane, which I wasn't completely emotionally prepared for when we moved here in the summer. But like, we got 8 inches on Sunday. And, moving 8 inches of wet snow, like I shoveled snow for 2 hours. We did our driveway. There's a retired Air Force guy across the street. We did his driveway. And then my kids helped. There's another guy down the street. He's a rancher, also retired. A lot of retired guys in our street. We shoveled 3 driveways, big driveways. I shoveled snow for 2 hours. I threw my Garmin on. It was like, 2 hours of zone 2 and zone 3 cardio. I burned like 950 calories. And then I still went to the gym because I felt fine. And like 4 years ago, I probably wouldn't have been fine. I would have been like done. I mean, like, I'm just going to watch football for the rest of the day. Yeah. But I didn't, like, and it's a good example for the kids. Yeah. And it made me feel good about myself that on my 45th birthday, I could shovel snow for 2 hours, go hit the gym, and still have energy to like do stuff with the kids. It was, it's good.
That's amazing. And that's something I feel like your kids will always look and remember that. I mean, I remember my father being like 8 and 10 years old. He's in his, back then he's 40 or whatever. And I just remember thinking, my dad's so fast. He's so strong. I want to be like him, And I feel like, it's a big push now to talk about generational wealth, and that's important and that's good. But I think what you're doing too is setting a tone for all your family of generational health, right? When they see dad getting after it in this way, it's going to inspire them. They're going to ask questions. Do any of your kids go with you, or do they show an interest in that way too?
So they are. I mean, my oldest daughter is more of a cardio person. Like we have a treadmill in the house. She uses the treadmill, and it's funny because she just hit the spot. She's really been doing it for about 3 weeks or so, 3 months or so. Sorry.
Mhm.
And she just hit the spot where she's like, yeah, I don't feel tired when I like walk on the treadmill. So I started running on the treadmill. Great.
Nice.
My son, I mean, he's a teenage boy, so he's inherently like a little bit lazy. Like he's a smart kid. He's a hard worker, but it's just like getting a teenage boy to be motivated to do something is sometimes hard.
Yeah.
But the most motivated I've seen him is over the summer. We have a little place in this place called Lake Chelan, Washington. Beautiful place. Feels a lot like Napa, orchards, vineyards. It's this glacial cut lake. It's mile wide, 60 miles long. Like it's like Tahoe. You can see like straight down. The gym there is, I take him there. It's like a 24-hour gym, small place, really good. I've been going there for years. And I don't even know how we got on the subject of deadlifting, but he wanted to try deadlifting. Great. Barbells there. It's kind of it's like a grungy gym. So there's like a bunch of barbells with piles of weights.
Those are the best, man. I love those places.
Totally. Right. But it was by his first day, because we basically said, listen, we're going to start with 25s. So you're going to do 95 pounds. That's easy. We're going to wait a couple minutes. We're going to pile weight. And he got up to 150 pounds in his first pull. Man. Right. His first day.
Yeah.
And the level of pride that he had on his face, because like that's a lot of weight. Like there, I mean, unless you practice it, like it's his first time out. He's 13 years old. We slapped some 45s on the side. We threw some 10s and 5s on, and he went out and he just did it. And he was so excited. Where now he wants to go lift, and he's getting testosterone. He's going through puberty, all those things. So like he's doing body weight training right now.
Nice.
And then I'll start bringing himself over to the gym. But it's interesting to see, like my daughter, she's 10. She loves to lift. She loves it. Like, and she's a really athletic kid too. Like you can show her a movement once and she gets it. So she likes doing stuff on the cables. Like she was doing like cable flies over the summer. Right. And she's like, hulking out. She's like, likes the way she looks when she's like grabbing the cables and like, posing in front of the mirror, like it's right up against the mirror. So yeah, they're starting to come.
Man,
for sure.
That's amazing, man. I love that you model that. And that's super cool that, you think back to that one decision where your doctor had told you could kind of go one path or the other. And now the influence that's going to have on not only your kids, their kids and their kids and their kid, that generational. I think that's awesome, man. Talk to me about, being a jiu-jitsu black belt. When did that start? Is that something you still practice a couple days a week, or what's that look like?
No, I like to, I'm kind of retired at this point from the fight game a little bit. So, when I was, I was always an athlete, right? I was a county champ for tennis. I played, university level rugby for 4 years in college. Right around the end of my college time, a DC school started teaching Krav Maga, and I've got Jewish roots, and so I've got some family, in Israel and people around the country, and if you're not familiar with Krav Maga, it is the hand-to-hand combat system developed by the Israeli Defense Forces. And it was designed by a guy named Emi Lichtenfeld, who is just like one of the most badass guys on the planet. I think the story is that like there was a year that in his weight class, he was the European Continental Champion for wrestling, boxing, and gymnastics in the same year. Like this guy was
just like a freak, man. That's crazy.
This guy's unbelievable. So what he did is, he had a background in judo and in wrestling and boxing, and he basically started consulting with experts, masters in all these different arts: taekwondo, karate, jiu-jitsu, judo, boxing. And he started to assemble a system using effectively the most statistically successful techniques. So Krav Maga is really interesting because it has a very small number of kind of core techniques that are applied over and over in lots of different situations. Really, really good at what I call set pieces. Like somebody's choking you. Here's how you get that choke off and how you counterattack. Somebody has a gun to your head. Somebody has a knife around your throat. Somebody's threatening you. What do you do? Right? They excel at that stuff. So the kind of culturally, but also tactically, it seemed really interesting. So I started taking classes there. I did some things like a little karate, a little taekwondo, never really stuck. And I realized that what I didn't like was the formality. I didn't like doing the forms and the katas and things like that. There's a ton of value on that stuff. I wish I had stuck with it when I was a kid, but younger, I was like, man, I want to ground and pound. Like I want to learn how to fight. And Krav Maga was about learning how to fight. So I started taking classes, and after about a year, I realized one, I was good at it. Like it made sense to me. Like, I didn't really lose that much. Like if I was sparring people, like I always won. Now, great, small sample size, class of 25 people. Like I'm not a UFC champion or anything like that, but like I was pretty handy at it. It made sense for my body. Krav Maga was just starting to expand in the US. Like really, it was just in LA, which is where Krav Maga headquarters are. Handful of instructors. I got invited to go through Krav Maga instructor training.
Oh, wow.
So I went, I spent a couple of weeks in Jacksonville, Florida, just getting my butt kicked by a bunch of guys who were like former Israeli sea commandos. And, the guy who was the head hand-to-hand combat instructor for the Israeli Defense Forces. Like all these, just like a guy who was a Argentinian silver medalist in the Olympics in Taekwondo. Like these guys were just awesome, best in the business.
As good as you were, they could probably end your life in 5
seconds.
Oh
my gosh, these guys, I thought I was pretty good. It's like you hear stories. Like I got a buddy who he was a quarterback in college, and he said he went to one scouting event where he was playing with guys who were in the NFL, and he was like, "This is the end for me." Right? He's like, "I was the best guy on my team at I forget where he went, one of the Washington State schools," and he's like, everybody who was there, these guys were like practice squad players. He's like, they're so big and so fast and so technical. He's like, I'm done. Never gonna make it. So that's where these guys are. Like it's a whole different level. So I got certified, and there's multiple level certifications. Spent a bunch of time in Los Angeles, and I started teaching, and I loved it. And around the same time, after I got certified as a Krav Maga instructor, I started studying jiu-jitsu at a school up in Bethesda, Maryland. Not Brazilian jiu-jitsu, Japanese jiu-jitsu.
Okay, now were you doing this at the same time as you're working at Microsoft, or is this the only thing?
No, this is all before. So I was working. Gotcha. I was working in biotech for a while, and then we got Parallels started. So I was in tech, doing that as a full-time job. I had aspirations to teach Krav Maga and jiu-jitsu full-time. It's turned out it wasn't for me. Like I didn't know how to run the business. I couldn't recruit. I just liked teaching.
Gotcha.
I didn't like doing the other stuff. So I started studying. Kindai-Ryu Jiu-Jitsu in 2002. I think I got my black belt in 2006. And that was great because Jiu-Jitsu is all leverage technique. Krav Maga is mostly striking. Jiu-Jitsu is a lot of locks, chokes, and throws, also from a standing position. Big difference between Japanese Jiu-Jitsu and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Some grappling, but not a grappling art like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is. So I started putting those two things together and kind of teaching a hybrid. Because I think, as my Jiu-Jitsu Shihan said, he said, like, I'm a grain of sand on a beach, right? He's like, I know everything there is to know about my grain of sand, but there's a lot of sand out there on the beach that I don't know anything about. So, I started teaching that, not full-time, but I ran a small school in DC, did a lot of work with DC Metro Police, and officers, teaching them how to stay safe and how to deal with, threats and in non-lethal ways. I did a lot of work with the military police at Bolling Air Force Base and at the National Naval Medical Center, some work with the NCIS guys. So I got to be in that community, which I love and I have deep respect for, kind of do a small part to help keep those men and women safe. When I moved out to the Seattle area, I kind of stopped teaching regularly. So what I do now is, I have some gear in my garage. And I'll run church seminars. I'll run women's self-defense seminars. Starting to teach the older kids a little bit, but I don't teach regularly. It's a couple of times a year thing because it's very, very time consuming. 9 kids and my business and all the other stuff. Like I don't have the bandwidth to say I'm also going to run a Krav Maga school. Now it's I talk to the group at our church, and the women's group was like, hey, we'd love to do a women's self-defense class. Great. I am more than happy to grab 4 hours on a Sunday and bring the mats out and bring the gear, and we'll go through the basics. I don't do it regularly anymore.
I think that's awesome though, man. That's cool that you share your gifts and help people with that. And especially your kids, man. I mean, I think what a gift that'll be to your kids to be able to teach that. That's such an interesting and cool background, man, that you got to meet probably some of the most interesting people in the entire world through that too, man, which is pretty awesome. And
There's some pretty amazing people. I mean, honestly, for martial arts more than anything else, you talk about the kids, like it's such a great confidence. Aside from the tactical skills of knowing how to protect yourself and situational awareness, the thing I loved more than anything else is watching people grow in confidence. Because I had people come through my school I had people who had things like multiple sclerosis, right? People who had limited mobility, limited muscle control, and they wanted to come in and they wanted to learn. And watching those people go from a place where they're like, people have been telling me I can't do stuff, to doing something really hard was great. We had people who come in who were, victims of domestic violence or rape or sexual assault or all these kind of horrible, violative crimes. And watching those people go from, feeling small to kind of coming out of their shell and realizing they can kind of like live their life and be out in the world and be safe it's a great thing. Like for me, that was my favorite part.
That's awesome, man. I love how you said the police too. That's something I remember hearing one time, and I was like, that makes so much sense. I wish it was mandatory for all police to get free jiu-jitsu, free Krav Maga. But like, let's have all these guys. I'd be happy to pay tax dollars for stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
If it could make them safer, make everybody else safer.
It is interesting. I mean, we could have a whole episode where we talk about
Yeah.
law enforcement training and what people should be doing or shouldn't be doing. And I'm in a limited position to have any position on that based on the fact that I'm not in the community, certainly not as deep as I was. But it is important, especially, those men and women, whether it be military, whether it be law enforcement, even a lot of our first responders, EMTs, firefighters, like they put themselves in harm's way every day. And we should be giving them every tool that we can to make sure that they can do their jobs safely for themselves and safely for the community, for sure.
Yeah, that's right, man. That's awesome. That's really cool. Well, tell me about the new company, man. You work at Microsoft for 15 years in senior leadership.
Yeah.
Certainly probably learn a lot while you're doing that and develop a lot of awesome skills. Now, how are you taking that, and tell us about your new company and what's coming with that, man?
Yeah, you bet. Yeah. So I spent 15 years at Microsoft in a variety of positions. I looked after advertising experiential for Windows Phone, may it rest in peace. I managed kind of worldwide retail and channel experience. So if you've ever been into a Best Buy, there's that big Microsoft section that kind of lives in the back. My team designed and built that stuff for years. Wow. We trained the retail pros, and we did the demos on the devices. I looked after the news ecosystem for MSN. And then most recently, I did strategic account marketing and worldwide comms for commercial. Wow. So what I realized over my time at Microsoft, this is where the company comes into play, is when I left, is if you think about this like product to purchase journey, there are these gaps. And typically it's like when you build something and you're trying to market something, there's an identity gap that you have to close. Like, what does the product stand for? What does the company stand for? What are we for? What are we against? Who are we for? Who are we not for? What are our values? What do we look like? What do we sound like? What is that brand and identity gap? And then when you go from like marketing to sales, there's typically a content gap, right? What marketing tends to want to build for kind of general consumption, what sellers need to sell, there's another gap. Then when you think about how you take that content and you get it in the hands of decision makers, there's a delivery gap. How do you actually package that stuff in ways that resonate with humans? And then if you look across the whole thing and how those handoffs happen, there's an operational gap. How do you figure out workflows and workbacks and roles and responsibilities and all that kind of stuff? And my team closes those gaps. That's what we do. Like we did it for Microsoft and some other major companies for years. And that's what we're bringing to the market is, we're starting to think about how we use, build strategies and strategic storytelling to help forge authentic connections inside companies and then between those companies and customers. And I can't disclose our client list, but I can tell you we're working for some of the biggest companies in the world already. And, and next month we're going to kind of unveil it all to the world. I'm very excited.
And that's awesome, brother. I'm super happy for you, man. And I think you're such a testament to like, and it's early on from your life. You can tell from talking to you. I love people that are intense about life. I don't understand people that just never get fired up about life, and you seem very intentional, very like, dude, what I go at, I'm going to go at super hard. Right. Do you feel like some of those lessons that maybe even make you successful in business have come from sports, or where's that mindset to I would just say, as a guy that's gotten to know you a little bit now, there's exactly a 0% chance you'll fail at any business you go into, because it's just up here, man. You're going to find a way. You're going to pivot, right? Where do you think that
Yeah.
comes from?
I don't know. I mean, I've always been the kind of guy where I'm like, man, winning feels so much better than losing, right? It's like, it really does. I mean, it's like everything I've done, like I like to win. And I don't mean that from like, I got to get a trophy, but like, if I'm going to do it, then I'm going to go do it. Like, I was an Eagle Scout in Boy Scouts, which, is a lot of work. But I was an Eagle Scout when I was 14 because I was like, I'm going to win Boy Scouts. Like, and I won Boy Scouts. Like, I think at the time I was the youngest Eagle Scout, certainly of the year, maybe ever. I don't know. Somebody beat me because I got actually a note from the kid who he was like 13 and like 11 months or something like that. He's like, you were the guy, and now I'm the guy.
Wow.
And that's awesome, right? Like, good for him. Like, crushed it. Yeah, it's like certainly for, I think tennis more than anything else taught that to me. Because tennis is one of those games that like I was not a gifted athlete when I was a kid. I was always a little heavy. Like, that was always something, like I still struggle with it. It's just like, I see you and I'm like, man, that guy's so lean. I wish I could be lean like that. Like, that ain't in the cards for me. You need someone to move like a crap load of weight. I'm your guy. You need me to, take a bunch of pictures with my shirt off. I'm not that guy. It's okay. I'm coming.
Funny you say that, because I'm like, I'd still be deadlifting 450 over here.
Right, exactly. It's
I'm
like
you always
I will say,
there.
like, somebody, one of my trainer friends told me, he's like, listen, he's like, the body that you have that you're unhappy with is the body that somebody else would kill for.
Very true.
Like, I've come to terms with that fact, right? We all have different strengths and gifts. But tennis was one of those games where I realized that, there were guys who could beat you with their bodies, right? They had the gift. I realized if I was going to win, I had to beat people with my brain. And the only way that I could beat people with my brain was if I analyzed the situation, and I built a plan, and I executed on that plan, and I thought about the contingencies. So, like, I'm a big believer, and I think the Eagle Scout piece of it, Boy Scouts teaches you to be prepared. It's the Scout motto, right? Like, tennis really crystallized that for me. Well, like, I knew I was not going to be the fittest guy on the court. I wasn't going to be the guy who could just effortlessly hit the ball. But I could outthink people, and I could outplan people, and I could out-strategize people. And I certainly wasn't going to go pro, but I did pretty well for where I was, and I was a very much an above-average tennis player. And like, that's the stuff that I pulled forward. Rugby was the same way. Rugby was a little bit better because like my natural like size and strength and kind of aggressive demeanor, I could put that to work. But there were guys on my team who were, truly gifted athletes, guys who were like in high school, like all-American football players and wrestlers. And I wasn't that guy. But same deal. You could watch the field, and I was the president of the club, and I was, like a senior guy on the team, and you could direct people, and you could figure out where people were going to be and understand strengths and weaknesses and personalities. So like all of those kind of things, like that's business management, right? Building a plan, working the plan, like all those things, understanding personality dynamics, knowing what people are getting wound up, interpersonal dynamics, how you overcome problems, how you performance manage, all that kind of stuff. You learn in sports. And I'm glad that, when I was younger, I was much more of an individual sports guy. And then I got into the team sports a little bit later. And I think playing both of those is critical. And that individual sport can be swimming or golf or tennis or CrossFit or whatever. And I don't really care if you're playing basketball or baseball or football or rugby or field hockey or what you do. You should do all of them. But like, you learn a lot from those things. And I honestly, I don't think that I would be as successful as I am or have the mindset that I do without it. It also teaches you to deal with things that suck, right? Like, you got your tennis coach or your rugby coach or whatever having you do hill sprints. Like, that sucks. And then you actually get out there on the field and like, you're not tired. And you're like, oh, it's the samurai model of like, you cry in the dojo so you can laugh on the battlefield. It just teaches you to power through that stuff. And, I think it's important for kids to understand non-lethal adversity. Like, certainly if there's, problems in the home or food insecurity or health issues, those are very different things. But like, showing up to a sporting event and just absolutely getting your ass handed to you is good for you, right? You learn you're not invincible. You learn you got to work better, work harder and better and smarter. And sometimes, like when I was taking Krav Maga and I was doing jiu-jitsu, man, I was the best. Until I met those Israeli commando guys that I went to go train with. And all of a sudden I was like very much not the best. And then you train with some guys who were like UFC champions and things like that. And then you realize The guys who were instructors, also not the best.
Yeah.
Like those guys are the best. And even those guys sometimes. So
Yeah.
like it's a good thing for your, for your ego check to just make you understand that, like, you gotta, doesn't matter how gifted you are at one thing, sometimes you're gonna lose and you gotta work at it.
I think that's why I love sports. And I look back at my own life very, very much similar to you. And I think that's, we can put our kids in these situations. And I think we're seeing a whole generation now of some kids who have never had any adversity. And then now they're 25 in the workplace and their boss yells at them and they need a safe room to go cry. Right. And it's like, you need to develop a lot of those things as youth. It is great. I can still remember getting beat by our rival basketball school, Calvary Academy, 3 years in a row. And all summer, my dad would challenge me. How many hours a day you think Jamie Nolke's working out? How about you? I was 6, 7, 8 hours a day dribbling the ball, running sprints to, and we beat him my freshman year. And I remember like 3 straight years of losses made me, develop a work ethic, right? And I think that those lessons that you take are invaluable, man. So I love that. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, exactly. It makes you realize that, like, like you said, like there's a level of adversity. And I mean, I know everybody, like, I don't know if it's a generational thing or not. There's probably something to that because, like, now I'm like back in my day, we didn't think, but I'm sure that there are people in my generation. Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm sure there were people who were whiny like that when I was a kid too. It's just, but your point is like people manufacture adversity if they haven't faced it. And again, like I'm not suggesting anybody should have to go through or wants to go through real adversity because like we all have those things as well, and that's illnesses and all sorts of stuff that are financial things, and those things are terrible. But like sports is a great way to just experience a little bit of pain and misery and defeat that you can learn from in a non-lethal way, right? Like in a non-lethal, non-threatening way. It's just like, I remember in rugby, like my freshman year, we played a tournament and we had a pretty good squad at GW, but we played Harvard. Harvard's very good. They recruit, they have a huge endowment. And rugby halves are 40 minutes long. We were playing 20-minute halves in this tournament, short games. We got beat 64-0. We just got absolutely crushed. Like it was one of those games that you're just like, the second half, we're just like, just blow the whistle.
Yeah, is it over?
Like, it's mercy rule. Like we're all tired and we're getting destroyed. And it's just like, I laugh about it now, but it was good. Like we all showed up on that Monday and we were like, all right, let's figure out what we're wrong and we'll do better next week. And we did.
Man, that's awesome, man. I love those lessons. Well, dude, you got so much wisdom to share. I appreciate you hopping on. I don't want to take too much of your time. I know you're busy. You got a family trip coming up to Hawaii, launching a new company coming out here in a month or two. I'll be sure to look for that on Twitter a lot. Everybody, I'm going to link all your info below, man. Is there any way people can follow you? I'll link your LinkedIn and your Twitter. Anywhere else people can find you, or is that pretty much?
That's the best way. I mean, that's where I spend a lot of time right now since the company website's not up and we're kind of keeping that under wraps until we're ready to launch. Come find me on Twitter at Ben the PC Guy. And I think just Ben Rudolph. If you type in Ben Rudolph Microsoft on LinkedIn, you will find me.
Nice, man. Well, I appreciate that, man. What would you say to, I guess, any other dads? Most of my podcast, I do the demographics. I think we got like 3% female. That's probably my wife and my mom. So it's mostly dads, right? that are watching this and saying, well, man, I got a bunch of kids and a work and stressful and this and that. What advice would you give them to maybe just start? Maybe, hey, how do you get out of a rut that they're in, or what advice do you give them? Because seemingly you're successful at everything you do. What would you tell them?
I think it's, it sounds so cliche, but it's starting small and then staying consistent, right? It's like, I was watching your journey. Have you done the 5 Murph thing yet? Or are you still trying?
Yeah. I did it a month ago, man. So I did them all before noon. I got them done by 10:30 a.m.
Right. See, like, I don't have that kind of endurance, but if you need to do you need to deadlift 600, I'm your guy. Like, we'll go do that. No problem. It's like, I think people see, some of the weightlifting stuff that I post, like the big personal records. They watch you do 5 Murphs in a day and they go, hey, look what a Murph is. And you're like, yeah, like that's a lot. And it's so easy to get discouraged. You could do 10 air squats and 10 push-ups a day for a week. Mm. Then take a day off. Then next week, try and do 15 push-ups and 10 and 15 air squats a day. And you're going to do it. And you're going to feel easy. Then all of a sudden it gets fun. You're like, well, I wonder how many I can do next week. Mm. It's like, it's, you can start so small. You don't want to go run a marathon? Cool. Neither do I. Go take a walk around the neighborhood for half an hour. I had a guy on my rugby team, real big guy, very heavy. He was like, I'm going to start running. You know what he would do? He would go out. And this is in DC. He would run as far as he could until he couldn't go anymore. Then he would take a cab home. And then the next day he would run farther, and then he would take a cab home. And he got to the point where then he could start running, a mile and a half out. He's like, well, if I can do a mile and a half out, I can get a mile and a half back. Mm-hmm. And, in 6 months he was running and he lost weight and he was fitter. And like, that would be my biggest advice for anybody. It's like, you just got to get off the couch, man. And you just got to try something. Like when I got my son started on weightlifting, I had him doing push-ups, air squats, one leg Romanian deadlifts, and towel rows on a door. Do 3 sets of 10 for each one. That's it. It takes 15 minutes. Anybody can do it with zero equipment. All you need is a towel and a doorknob. You can do that workout, and in 30 days, you will feel completely different. Then you can go get the gym membership or buy the Peloton or get the treadmill. But just like, get off the couch, man. Do the push-ups, the air squats, the towel rows, and the run leg Romanian deadlifts, and you will be a machine in 30 days. You will feel great.
I love that, man. I could see, I would love to work for a guy like you. I feel like you would just fire people up every day, man. Being around, I hear you talk. I'm going to go do some push-ups after this podcast, brother.
That's right. It's like, I remember I haven't gone to the gym today. I got to do that this afternoon. I got to go do my push-ups and my air squats.
Man, well, I appreciate you coming on, Ben. Thanks so much, man. I appreciate all the positivity, everything you put out online too, man. You're an awesome guy to follow. Again, I'm going to link everything Ben does below. Guys, thanks for tuning in. This is Tyrompers No Limit Podcast, episode number 96. Guys, go be kind to yourself. Go be kind to others. Take Ben's advice and just start. Turn off the podcast, man. After this, get down, do some push-ups, do some air squats, do something that'll make yourself proud and build some momentum, and let's go get it, baby. Thanks for tuning in. Have the best day.